a video on something that I was reminded about. So, I bought the Food of Sicily book. It's a really nice book, is this? Although I don't tend to buy recipe books, well, cooking books for recipes. I tend to buy cooking books, recipe books for actual ideas. And it reminded me of the time I went to Sicily and we had pasta with breadcrumbs, and I'm sure there was some sardines in it as well. So I kind of thought, I'll have a go at that. I'm sure I have tried it before. I was looking at the recipe in here, and it was just it's spaghetti with anchovies and toasted breadcrumbs, and it was just there was all those ingredients, and that was just like, oh, that just seems quite a lot. So I thought we'll just do a simpler version of that. We'll just do pasta. I can't remember if looking in that book if there was any cheese in that. Normally, you don't put cheese in with fish, but I think we'll break that rule because we're not Italian and we're not in Italy. So I reckon 3 anchovies. Well, half these anchovies and the oil. That's what we're going to cook the pasta in. I'm going to cook it more like a risotto than actually the normal way of cooking pasta. So I want half these anchovies, about that much, I reckon. That's probably a little bit too much, actually. It'll be fine. And we want the oil, or some of it, and we'll just heat that, and it'll just melt the anchovies. Right, my fingers. We use those anchovies that are left over in something else. So, but just as it heats, we'll just be able to break these anchovies down. And that's the water for me washing my hand. So just as these anchovies start to warm up, they'll melt into the oil. Maybe a little bit too high. Now, let that warm up for a little bit, and then I've got some fancy pasta. Well, it's the last of it, so it's that pasta. So I found, and normally, if I'm faffing around with stuff, I use a cheap pasta, but I have discovered that the fancy pasta, the fancy expensive pasta, is a lot better. So, so I was kind of thinking, we'll do this version, so with the fancy pasta and the anchovies and the breadcrumbs and maybe a little bit of cheese, and then we'll do the cheap version with the cheap pasta and some tuna chunks in sunflower oil. So we should be able to do something similar with that. But anyway, so I have just soaked the pasta in some water just to soften it so it fits in the pan. Normally you'd cook the pasta in some boiling water and then use that water from the pasta water to cook the pasta, but I'm not going to do that. I've just added some hot water to the pasta just to soften it, and then that water is going to go in and kind of cook it, so we don't lose any of the starch that's coming out of that pasta. And also the pasta water that you use in restaurants, the starch in it kind of like builds up during the night, so it's fresh water at the start of service, and by the end of service that water is absolutely saturated with the starch from pasta. Now you can't really do that at home, but what you can do is you can soften the pasta in some hot water first, and then use that hot water they use to soften the pasta, and it's already, you can see the starch in it already. That's not the anchovies, and then you can use that starch to form the basis of the sauce. So heat this in the pan like that, and then what will happen is it will cook a little bit like a risotto. The pasta will cook, it will give up more starch into the water, and the water will combine with the oil and the starch, and it will make a little bit of a sauce. Now normally that would be kind of just quite enough, but I think I'm going to add some cheese, which will form a nicer sauce, and then we'll stir in some breadcrumbs, and then I think it'll be a really nice pasta dish. Pepper in now, no salt, because obviously there's anchovies, and we're going to put some cheese in, possibly, maybe, we'll see. But I haven't cooked this pasta without putting cheese in before, so I've cooked it and then made like a carbonara and putting cheese in it, but I haven't done it without putting any cheese in. So we'll actually see if it actually forms the sauce first, and then anyway, ponds. So add a little more, cook it, and as the water evaporates off, I'll add a little bit more water. So I'll have some boiling water ready, just to kind of top it up as we go. But you don't need to see the whole entire cooking process. And I'm very conscious of making my videos a little bit shorter because I have a habit of waffling, even though my waffling is generally full of interesting bits of information about cooking. But we'll pause and we're back when something is happening. Pasta is almost cooked, and as you can see, the cooking liquid and oil and pasta water, no, the pasta and the starch and pasta formed a little bit of a sauce in the bottom. It's a little bit opaque, so I don't really kind of want that. Now it needs some salt, so we probably could have got away with more anchovies, so we probably could have got away with a whole tin, in all honesty. So more pepper, and then let's turn the temperature, let's turn the heat off, and then let's throw it in some pasta and we'll form a sauce. So we shouldn't really do this because it's fish and it's cheese, but we're not in Italy and I'm not Italian, so there we go. And it's just the cheap stuff from the supermarket. I find a younger, harder cheese better at melting into pasta dishes like this. Now we should have grated this beforehand, and we should do it really finely, but because we're using a younger, harder cheese, something that's not aged as much, when I mean younger, so the older a cheese gets, the harder it gets. So, and the harder it gets, the less likely it wants to melt just as easy. So by picking a younger, harder cheese, we make sure that it melts quicker and easier, and we don't clump up. Although it's been opened in the fridge for a week, so that might not actually happen. It looks like it's going to be okay. So I did turn the heat off. We don't cook it anymore. We don't put the heat on because what it'll do is it'll split the cheese, and that's not what we want. So more cheese. It's already formed quite a nice sauce. Maybe should take that out of the packet, and it's easier to grate, and we're not going to grate plastic into the pasta. So now we shouldn't really be putting cheese in this because it's a Sicilian dish, and they use the peasant food. They use breadcrumbs, toasted breadcrumbs, or fried breadcrumbs that have been fried in olive oil as a cheese substitute, and it gives it a little bit of a crunch as well. But anyway, so we doubly shouldn't be using cheese in a pasta. A little bit of water just to loosen it, and maybe a little bit more cheese. Not a recipe as such, more of a feel for things. That was boiling water. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? The more expensive pasta really does make a better sauce if you're making something like carbonara. You just need to be a little bit more, you need to know what you do. You need to be a little bit more skilled if you're going to use cheaper ingredients. That's what I'm going to say. So a good chef will be able to get away with using cheaper ingredients, which is probably a reason why. So yeah, so I think a lot of restaurants fail these days because they don't know how to use cheaper basic ingredients and get them the best out of them. They want to use more expensive ingredients and use those for the background and flavour, but more expensive ingredients cost you more money, and you can't charge any more for them because pasta's still pasta. You know, people go in the supermarket and they see the price of pasta and they kind of go, well, how come you're charging 15 quid for a pasta dish when I can buy a packet of pasta for 2 quid in the supermarket? You know, and they feel like people are being, doesn't like they're being ripped off. Whereas a good chef would buy even cheaper pasta and get away with it, but anyway, not charge as much. So let's taste that. And then sprinkle some breadcrumbs in, and then we'll do it fancy and then do it into a bowl and take a picture. So the breadcrumbs are just fried in a little bit of olive oil. That's lovely. That is lovely. So, I'm going to try a bit with breadcrumbs. Last minute, so it keeps that crunch. Not too many, not too much this time. Otherwise I'll just end up with a mouthful and talking with one mouthful. That's so good. That's so good. So that works really well. Now, I would say it was 250 grams worth of pasta. I'd use a whole tin of anchovies if I was to use it again, but we live and learn, don't we? So we'll spiral it. We'll take a nice picture, and that'll be the picture for the video. But that's delicious. A success.